All right. Welcome back to Blue by the Numbers, presented by Feldman Chevrolet of Highland. I'm Tanner, joined by Brian. A lot less cheerful and joyous on this version of this podcast. Normally we come in here and I'm pretty optimistic, Brian. I feel like, I'm a realist, but I like to look on the bright side. And I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but outside of Andrew Marsh, was there anything that you took away from this game feeling particularly good about?
Not really, no. And let me just say this. It's Tuesday afternoon. I'm talking to my buddy about Michigan football. Things could be worse. But, that game was, it wasn't what we expected, wasn't what we've come to hope for and, look forward to seeing from the team we root for. It was a really frustrating game. I think, I typically try to come at things from a really positive and supportive standpoint. And there are some things upon a second, third watch that I saw that like a couple of moments that could have really shifted that game to be, I'm not saying they win that game, but it's so much more competitive and we're not throwing in the towel with 4 minutes left. But it was a very disappointing evening to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, in the first half, Michigan cuts the lead or ties it. They tied at 7, about 2:30 to go, and then USC just gets whatever they want. And then coming out of halftime, Michigan gets the ball, goes 3 and out. So both of their first drives in the first half and the second half go 3 and out. And then USC was that. I'm trying to remember because I haven't watched it again. It was always tough to bring yourself to watch those nasty.
It's easier to watch. Those are really fun games.
Was that the 3rd and 26 drive when it was 14-7? Yes, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So then 3rd and 26. I don't know, man. Normally we come onto this show and we kind of position by position give our thoughts. I guess we can sort of do that. I thought there were growing pains for Bryce Underwood, but I didn't think he was as bad as I've seen some people say he was. He missed, but I thought he battled. I mean, you're talking about Andrew Marsh maybe making that play at the goal line and you're punching it in and you're 21-14 late in the third, right? So it wasn't, it wasn't all doom and gloom. And then obviously I think on that series of downs, I think it was on the third down, he throws the pick towards McCauley where may or may not have been interfered with or tugged on or whatever.
May or may not. He got
I'm just saying, I'm all over the internet here.
I know.
It wasn't,
There's nobody nobody that's not being a troll that could watch that or just a blind USC fan that doesn't see Donovan McCulley get turned around. That should have been, and that's where people are hard on Bryce. I thought Bryce had a pretty good game overall, he's still, like you said, having growing pains, but turn that play around and it's 1st and 10 inside the 15. That 9.5 times out of 10 should have been a pass interference, was a pass interference. The guy grabs him, he turns him fully around, like not 360, but more than 270 around, and they don't call the penalty, and the ball goes right to where he would have been. Instead,
it was similar to the one that did get called in the Sunday night game against the Lions,
right?
On I cannot recall. Was it Yasin? I can't remember.
Yeah, Yasin,
yeah. So I don't know. You go from that to feeling like, okay, you found a little bit of momentum in the second half, and then it just they get a field goal, and Michigan gets 2 turnovers within the red zone. Otherwise, this would have been basically the same as the Michigan State game. It's a little concerning.
Yeah,
a little concerning for me. Yeah. I thought the offensive line was a little discombobulated with Gio coming back into left guard. How much of that is on him being rusty versus, just taking a guy out that you've played with for the last 3 or 4 weeks and feel comfortable with. I don't know, man. It's just, we talked about it on our main show and I was pretty negative, and I still don't feel a whole lot better in terms of like positives to talk about, because not only was the play on the field uninspiring, some of the coaches just kind of looked like they were in a daze, got punched in the mouth, didn't know how to respond. I thought Wink was completely outclassed in this game. Like, I mean, 490 yards. It wasn't even like they had the ball that many times either. Like
No,
they punted once. They just moved up and down the field, got whatever they wanted, aside from a couple turnovers that, Michigan forced, right? You get a little fortunate on the fumble. I think I listened to the MGO blog podcast. I think they were like 11 yards an attempt on screenplays.
We were so out of position on run plays, on screen plays. They put Hausman in coverage just way too often. Like that has to be a check. Anyone that watches tape, if Hausman's like outside of the tackle, he's dropping into coverage. It's so obvious. I'm not a defensive guru, but you can see when you watch it, if he's outside the tackle, he's in coverage. And if he's in coverage, throw to wherever he is. He can't guard people. He's a great linebacker, but that's just not his thing. You know what I mean? And so I don't put that on him. I'm not even being critical of him. I think if you're the defensive play caller, you know what you have. What is it that Saban said? When you in tough spots, don't think of plays, think of players. And you got to know the guy that you're dealing with there. Don't put him in that position, and then he got that tight end they have is Walker Lyons, former quarterback, right? They kept putting him, just exposing him, Yeah. So I thought Wink's worst day as defensive play caller for the Wolverines. He had a rough go at it. We were out of position so much. We were so out of position so much.
Yeah, and I know we upload to YouTube and we also Spotify. I'm sure good mixture of people listen just on Spotify, so I don't want to make it visual or anything. But you sent me an image from the game. I can't tell what play it was. You'd have to go back and check the formation. But Michigan is in a 5-man front with 2 linebackers, 4 defensive backs. USC's got 2 tight ends. Now, the way they're lined up, quarterback's got nobody. It's empty. It's got 2 receivers to the top of the field, 1 to the bottom, and then the 2 tight ends, one's kind of a wide split in a 3-point stance, and the other's behind him in a 2-point stance. If I had to guess at what we're looking at here, Brian, it was a seam route for 25 yards. I don't know. But if you look at it, you have 2 deep safeties, and you have nobody covering the guy in the slot.
Nobody. So, no one's within 15 yards of him.
Maybe you can tweet this picture out with the podcast for the visual learning section of the show. But you sent that to me, and I saw it, and I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And there's a lot of people that are very negative on Wink Martindale, and I thought he turned the corner late last year. The Indiana game was kind of the start of that. Actually, the second half of the Oregon game, because they got smoked in the first half. They gave up the touchdown that maybe shouldn't have counted, but you come out with a 3-man front, and you don't have anybody filling the gap that Dylan Gabriel runs 25 yards through untouched. But at the second half of that game, it felt like, okay, he maybe found something, maybe realized he needed to simplify things a little bit for these college players. He's not coaching the Baltimore Ravens anymore, right? And all those great defensive players they've had during his tenure and before. And then we come into this year after the success against Ohio State, after the success against Alabama, which Alabama did play a lot of their players. They didn't have a lot of guys opt out. And you come in, and even in the New Mexico game, right, we're kind of like, they got us on some trick plays and whatnot. And you're just like, what in the world? And then, the Oklahoma game, I didn't think necessarily was on the defense. They got a couple times, maybe would have been able to keep that a little closer, give the offense a chance. Because you're going to have to be in a dogfight to win that. They were dominant in the middle part of the game, majority of the middle part of the game against Wisconsin, but we saw what Wisconsin is. So against Nebraska too, like the Hail Mary, like it just is a constant theme of just like, what are you doing? And we're just guys that sit on the couch or sit in the stadium and watch the game, right?
Right.
Like we digest a lot of football stuff. I watch a lot of videos on YouTube about football and scheme and try to not sound like a moron, right? But when I'm watching this, I didn't play football at a high level, but I'm like, I know at least a little bit. And it's like, I don't think the defense that you're running is putting your guys in a place to be successful. Like it just was the same things, and it's not even just always schematic, Brian. It's fundamentals. It's tackling. They don't tackle well. That's been 2 years of that coming off the team that, if you were able to go back 144 years of Michigan football prior, maybe tackled the best of any team in Michigan history.
Right.
So we're now at a point watching this defense where it's like, I don't have any confidence in them being able to get off the field. I hardly have confidence that when it's 3rd and 26 that they're going to get off the field.
I feel like the tackling issue, I have so many thoughts to what you just said, but I think the tackling issue, and this could be out of left field, but I feel like some of it is not knowing your responsibility. I feel like you talked about the best tackling team in team history. That team was so disciplined. They all had specific roles, specific responsibilities, and they filled them. And I think when you're playing with total understanding and total confidence in the role you're playing, you block out the noise and you just make the play in front of you. I think these guys, you talk about playing sports like the game slows down. I feel like the game is going so fast for so many of the guys out there that by the time it's time to make the play, their brain's going so fast. I have nothing to back this up, by the way, but I think that, they're just racing to the ball and then like, oh yeah, I have to make a tackle here, which leads me to, I saw something just today, but Michigan is the youngest team by a pretty good margin in the Big Ten, right? Yeah. And so for the sky is falling people, it's like we're playing a ton of really young guys. We're the youngest team in the Big Ten, and we are, as bad as we're all feeling right now, we are far from, the bottom half of the Big Ten. The question I have is, we're playing a lot of guys. Like, I put out the PFF grades and snap counts for, as long as PFF's been going out every week. And what I tend to see is a bunch of guys play when we play the Rutgers of the old and the Western Michigans of old. And then you play a team like USC and that gets really tight. You know what I mean? Really, really tight. And against USC, a game on the road, I mean, maybe you're traveling, but we played a ton of guys. And it's one thing to play a ton of guys a few snaps. We played a ton of guys a lot of snaps. When you look at the distribution, from the most snaps for defensive tackle to the least of the guys that played, the dispersion is not that wide. And so, if you want to look glass half full, we know we're not going to win the national championship, win the Big Ten this year. We're getting a lot of guys on the youngest team in the Big Ten reps. That's the positive. Negatives, we all want to win. They should want to win. Their job is to find the balance between putting out a product that wins and developing the guys. That's building a program, right? And so that's where I'm struggling right now the most is like, I love seeing the development, right? It's been a hallmark of the program. But when I look at some of the amount of snaps these guys played, it really makes you scratch your head. You know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't because of health issues. Like there's times you're forced to, like a running back last night on Saturday night, when Just Sains goes down, we're thin.
Yeah. Well, man, we might've jinxed that. You remember that last week talking about
I know. Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought of when I saw him
I thought of too.
Get up slow on the replay. To your point though, about the amount of guys that played. So there were 69 snaps for the defense against USC. Derek Moore played 36. So he played a little over half the snaps in this game. I'm sorry. That's malpractice. I don't care if he's struggling. I don't care if he's not having a great game. Chances are that your fourth year all Big Ten leader defensive end is going to make a play for you in a game. And so to take him out for effectively half of the snaps, to get Dominic Nichols 20 snaps and Nate Marshall 5. I know, look, Nate Marshall is going to be a really good football player. He's a true freshman. He needs to bake a little bit. Needs to get in the weight room this offseason, right? I just don't know why you would do that. I really don't. TJ Guy gets 15 snaps in this game, and I know that I don't know what's been going on with him in terms of like the coaching staff, because that's a guy that last year, he'd come in, you could feel his presence. He was great at setting the edge on outside runs. He had a couple stuffs against Ohio State. He played well in the bowl game. He's maybe not the best pass rusher in the world, but he's effective, and I feel like, more often than not stays in his lane, which was important in a game like this. I don't know. I don't know what's going on at Schembechler Hall, but it's really interesting to see some of these names and the amount of playing time that they got compared to some of your guys who are, because all year we heard, all season we heard this team's so deep, it's so deep. At a certain point, best guys are going to separate themselves.
Can I jump in there real quick?
Yes.
I know you're making a point, but before we move on, like you mentioned TJ Guy and Derek Moore. I encourage anyone, I did this, not to the full extent I'm about to challenge people, but look, there's plenty of like 10-minute recaps of like the highlights of each game. Go back and watch the highlights of every game and look when we've given up big plays. that have led to scores, try to find TJ Guy or Derek Moore. They're not on the field when those plays happen. USC, when it's not those guys. There's guys that I thought had really tough games in terms of responsibility. Barham and Roller had his worst game as a since he's been a significant contributor. You won't see Derek Moore and TJ Guy on plays where things go really bad. They're just not in the highlight. You know what I mean? They're not on the field. So the point is, it's validating the point that you're making, but it's you see kind of the same guys on the field and you see the same guys not on the field. And if you pick up on that, watch the bad plays against Nebraska. There wasn't many bad plays against Wisconsin. Watch the bad plays against Oklahoma. Watch the bad plays against USC, and you're not going to see a lot of Derek Moore on the field. So that's validating the point you're making. And so I don't get it either.
I really don't understand it. It's the same thing with the linebackers, right? I never thought that this was going to be a Jimmy Roller game. Like Wisconsin's a Jimmy Roller kind of vibe, right? Get downfield, old school linebacker. Cole Sullivan gets 32 snaps compared to Roller's 48. Troy Bowles plays 15 snaps. I kind of checked out late in the game. Hate to say it. But I don't know exactly when those came in. Like I said, I haven't watched the game. I do this. It's not a full-time job for anyone that's complaining I'm not working hard. I do it for fun. But I haven't watched the game. But I'd be curious to know when those snaps occurred. I don't know, man. This continuation of the amount of shuffling they're doing, especially in the front seven. It's like, look, in the back four, I totally get it, right? Like Jaden Sanders, he only played 16 snaps. I didn't think he had a bad game. He got the touchdown scored on him. I thought he was in good position.
He was in great position. That was just a perfect throw,
right? So in the secondary, I understand it because you do have, you may have more receivers on the field, right? So you may be in your nickel or your dime package. I don't know if Wink knows what that is because they had three receivers. Look, like anything three receivers, I think you're probably safe to bring your nickel back onto the field, I would assume, just to match up, three corners with three receivers. But they're still going 5-2. So unless they're running the ball, you're in a disadvantage. And Lincoln Riley knows that because I know that, and I'm just a guy. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I just feel like I don't know. I don't know what it is. If it's really just that Wink reverted to what he was doing pre-fall November last year, and it's just too complex. But something's got to give, man. Because again, like Michigan has out-talented teams on this schedule so far. But that's not. I don't know. I'll say this. That might be the best offense they play all year. But I don't think it's the offense with the most talent on the field that they'll play. And if that offense with the most talent on the field figures it out, then it might be ugly unless he pulls one out of the hat again. And that's the last thing that we all want.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I don't know where you go from that defensively.
Well, I think, just so we're not all doom and gloom.
Please, I don't want to be. I hate it.
I
got the helmets behind me. The Lions lost, Tigers lost, Michigan lost. Terrible sports weekend in the state of Michigan.
Sports weekend, yeah.
Red Wings brought it home, one of their games. So on the up and up.
So you're telling me I got a chance. The team has lost 2 road games where they traveled a long way. You know what I mean? Like if you think of the history of the Big Ten, a long road trip was Nebraska. Right. Like they went to Oklahoma, which isn't that much farther than Nebraska, and out to USC and lost, but they didn't. I mean, it wasn't like they lost by a field goal at the end of either one of those games. They've been pretty solid at home. One thing about having all this gray hair and being a fan for so long, like you kind of can take a little bit more more conservative approach and not be so emotional on, and some of the chats I'm in, those people are just losing their minds. And so maybe it's part of me just trying to balance that out. But, I think this game on Saturday is just enormous because it is Washington is clearly the best team on our schedule until Ohio State, right? And we need to win this game. It's at home. Washington and Michigan, I think by most pundits, if you look at most metrics out there, they're very similarly ranked. Every excuse that we made about going out to USC that I just made about traveling really far, Washington faces. It's a noon game, which is totally in the favor of Michigan. If they don't win this game and look like they have a plan and look like they're playing together, then, maybe my tone changes. But I feel like, if Michigan comes out, wins by 10 on Saturday, it settles everything down, and then they can kind of work on improving and getting things right for a few weeks before they finish off with a flurry. But that's a lot of speculation. We don't know what they're going to look like, and so I'm hopeful. For some reason, this team for a while now has been a much better home team. And so, we have our 2 toughest games this year remaining at home. And so, just in choosing not to be Pollyanna, but just to be the glass half full in an environment where a lot of our fans are losing their mind and want to throw people over the ship. I think there's reasons to, pause for a second and let's see what this weekend looks like.
What's that Tom Cruise movie where they know if someone's about to commit a crime?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is it Minority Report?
Minority Report. Yep. Yeah.
That's how our fans act sometimes. Like,
yeah,
but,
right.
And in their defense, you can see signs again of what happened last year, right? And last year, with this Bryce Underwood, do they lose those games to Washington and Illinois? I don't know. But I can, and I'm feeling it myself. Like, I'm having doubts about the direction of this program, to be completely transparent and blunt. So I understand why I try to not be emotional. I get emotional during the game, like, because I'm just an emotional football watcher. I think it's more fun when you win. Like, it's just way more fun to just be a lunatic. But I will say, I haven't had this happen in a while, Brian. Game is in, I think it was right after the interception on the no call late in the third. I'm like, oh, they're probably going to score again. I just felt liberated. I was like, I don't even, I'm just going to resign myself to the fact that this game's probably going to be an L. And I actually enjoyed the rest of my night a little bit more than I normally would have. The Oklahoma game, I'm like, hey, score here, stop, score. And I do that to myself. But I do understand where fans are coming from.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to be – and we normally don't, talk about press conference stuff. We just talk about the games. I got to be honest. Sherrone Moore had his press conference, and they asked him what his message to the team was. He says, we got to go to work, and that's why I have my blue-collar jacket on. You don't talk about it, right? You're supposed to be about it. That's a Jim Harbaughism, right? I'm sure somebody else came up with it and he adopted it. I don't know. But, that to me is just that doesn't do anything for me. I know it's not for us, but, I don't know, man. I'm going to wear the blue-collar jacket now. We gotta get after it. It feels a little – 2011 to 2014-ish to me. I don't want to make that comparison right now. But so I see where I'm seeing things that I'm like, Jordan Marshall's comments. Did you see those after the game about the stadium? Brother, you got whooped.
Yeah. Shut your
mouth. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
Why are you saying these words? So I just see all these, I'll let you hop in here, but I just see all these things from the program and I'm like, smiling on the sideline, you're down 18 in the fourth in a game that you if you want to achieve your goals in the year, look, everything's still in front of you technically. And we said this last year after the Washington game, so I don't really want to do this again. Everything's still in front of you. You lost your marquee non-conference. You lost I think Michigan was 4-1, 2-0 in the Big Ten, and then lost their third Big Ten game on the road on the West Coast. Everything's still there. It is. But they didn't. I mean, again, they beat Ohio State last year. It was amazing. They beat Alabama, cool. Finished 8-5. But Jake Butt was on the Stadium and Maine podcast with Chris Wormley and Jordan Strack, and because I edit the podcast, so I'm listening through, making sure I'm catching any things that need to be edited or whatever. And one of the things he talked about was the amount of resources that are pumped into this program, and because of that, yeah, you may be a freshman quarterback, but the amount of money that pumps in. And the amount of time and sacrifice from everybody involved, the expectations are just so high, right? And so this isn't good enough. It's not. I know it's year 2, and you talked about it, and I'm going on a rant. I'll let you get your piece, and I apologize I got a lot to say.
Do your thing, buddy. Do your thing.
But you talked about going out west or coming across the country. I saw Oregon go do it with a first year start. I know Dante Moore started some because you said, but a true first year starter. I saw Indiana go do it in year 2 under Kurt Signetti, right? Like I saw Ohio State go to Washington and beat up on them. It wasn't pretty, but it was like a 2023 Michigan win. So look, the previous head coach didn't do Sharon any favors. And I don't know why I said that. Jim Harbaugh. I love Jim Harbaugh. Jim didn't do Sharon any favors. Poached a lot of guys, not poached, but brought a lot of his guys to Los Angeles with him to go to the Chargers. Recruiting maybe wasn't the best in 2023 coming into, that 2023 class that would have been sophomores last year. I don't know, though, man. I don't get the warm and fuzzies right now. I can tell you that.
The only point I was going to make, and we've kind of moved past it, but like it seems like when things are going rough and people are all in their feelings, you nitpick things like the press conference. Like if we're being honest, and I hear everything you said is valid about that, and I can get in line with that just as easy as I can say what I'm about to say. But a press conference has never won a game. Like you can go win the press conference. Think of some of the press conferences where guys like, oh, I love that coach. Like people, I saw people, Kenny Dillingham give a great press conference. And everyone's like, well, okay, we need a coach that has press conferences like that. And Kenny Dillingham may be a better coach than Sharon Moore, or may or may not be. But the press conference isn't what makes him better, right? And so I just feel like everyone's in their feelings and, wants to pick on something. Was it a corny press conference? You bet it was. But I mean, it's like, so what? If he comes out wearing that and they're 6-0 and just beat, the score was a flip of the score, you're like, let's go. He's getting back. You know what I mean? Like it's the sentiment and everything you said is valid. I'm just saying, everything you said is valid. I get it. I'm not even disagreeing with you. I'm just saying there's just other ways to look at things. And so what my main point that I said earlier when I was talking about the Washington game is, I may be right in the boat with you this time next week. I may be right in the boat with all those people that are upset about the press conference, all the people that are upset with lots of things. But I'm going to sit back and wait and see what happens on Saturday and see if they make adjustments, if they do what they're supposed to at home. I think, the point that you were making about the cupboard being bare, let's face it, there was a point in the middle of Jim Harbaugh's tenure where things weren't going that great. What changed? Did he change? He evolved a little bit, but he also, I think what changed, the biggest pivotal thing that you can point to is he made some outstanding hires, right? We had a good defensive coordinator, a good offensive coordinator. We had good, every coach we had was really good. They're all in the NFL. We have head coaches out there. People are all over the place now, right? I think Wink was the right guy in the sense that we had all the success with the former Ravens guys, right? And he was the guy that taught Mike McDonald. He's the guy that taught Jesse Minter. It was his scheme that they were all working, but he just doesn't seem to make the adjustments there. So I guess, for me, the reason I don't have the panic or the drive to want to see like sudden and immediate change is because of what we said 15 minutes ago. And that is youngest team in the Big Ten, not the country, youngest team in the Big Ten, recruited really, really well in 2025, have a stellar class coming in 2026. The resources that you mentioned to go, hopefully address the portal needs that the team needs. Bryce Underwood, like that pass interference doesn't happen on McCulley. The perception of the game that he has and the outcome of that game may have looked a little different. What I mean? Like there's enough positives for me to still offset the frustration of what we're seeing. And some things are obvious and some things are, more opinion based, but I feel like there's enough really good things happening in the program, enough good people in the program. I think, he's going to have good leaders make difficult decisions. Good leaders put the mission over relationships, put the mission over doing what's easy. And he's going to, if he's the leader that this program needs him to be, he's going to have to make some changes in personnel. Particularly, I think that the offensive line coach, one of his best friends, Grant Newsome, great story. Anyone that knows his story is great. They're just not getting it done. You know what I mean? And it's 2 years in a row of not getting it done. And did they recruit at the right level? They've had some injury issues at the offensive line, but it was a hallmark of the program. You have an offensive line head coach. That's a position. Wink's just not it. Like that, he's gonna have to make some changes. There's some really good coaches on that staff, and some really good recruiters on that staff. But there's some ones that So I went on a rant. You went on a rant. I went on a rant.
Well, I follow recruiting pretty closely, and I know you do too. I think with Grant Newsome, I don't know, because I thought the offensive line up until Saturday had looked relatively good. I mean, even in the Oklahoma game, they weren't their best, but I didn't feel like they, were inadequate or anything. And I thought that they were making strides with the group that they had. And obviously Gio El-Hadi is a fifth-year senior. He's paid his dues more than, and he's a leader on this team. So I understand sliding back in. I don't know, again, if it was him just being rusty or if it was just, messed with the cohesion and the kind of the way that these guys work together, the chemistry. But I don't know. With Grant, it's tough because, I think Warner is a hit, right? I think they hit on him. It's tough because Link is still, a redshirt sophomore, and I think he's made strides, right? Sprague,
definitely
redshirt freshman. Normally you don't play guys this young. Even Link, wouldn't necessarily be playing in an ideal scenario. You have a fourth year guy that's been waiting in the wings. Because I think offensive line is really the one position that you don't want to just rely on the portal for. You really want to recruit guys, develop them, kind of build them up. And then year 3, year 4, they're ready. If Evan Link was playing, if he was a year older and he was at the right tackle spot last year, I think the offense would have been a little bit better because I don't think he would have been as much of a liability. So I don't know how much to pin on Grant Newsome. With Wink, I think I don't know, man. Again, the end of last year, you don't have Mason Graham or Kenneth Grant, right? But even when you had Will Johnson go out and you had to play some guys that were a little bit lower on the depth chart, you didn't see this level of this is the worst Michigan defensive performance since.
I don't know. It was pretty bad. From a gap responsibility and just being assignment football, it just was a mess.
Looks like 2020 Michigan is what it looked like. So there just weren't any adjustments. USC just killed Michigan in the screen game. Missed tackles. Again, we talked about. So I don't know what happens there. Special teams, I don't know how you trot that unit out. Whether it's punt return, I really don't know how the University of Michigan, which is a program forever that has always had good special teams, is part of the reason they won a national championship because they made big plays and key moments.
Good to see Moody make that kick.
Yes, it was. Mm. But I don't know how you trot that out there, man. How
that's bad.
The guy they went and got in the portal, I think just started his career. It's I'm just going to go on LinkedIn. I'm just going to go apply for a job now.
I'm good. Yeah.
How many times have we seen – we've seen it at least once, but how many other times have we seen a bad snap or a bad hold and mess Zavada up? And we may need to go look at all those kicks and make sure it was actually on Zavada. So I don't know if he can do it. Unless the stink's rubbing off on him, Brian.
One of my oldest buddies, Todd, shout out Todd. He's for the last 3 years. He sends me notes in our group that from that we went to school with, talking about the punters. And so when Hollenbeck had that horrible punt on Saturday, I just texted Todd. I'm like, say it. And then it's just been bad. Yes.
Thought it was a step forward against Wisconsin. Again, I was there. The ball was spiraling. It kept going. I was like, this is great. It didn't die after 30 yards. Samaj did catch his one punt.
Yes.
That was nice. Only forced one punt on the downside. So, yeah, man, I don't know. This is cause it's a weird spot, right? Because, if this is year 4, you know what this conversation sounds like, right?
Yeah, but it's not. But yes.
Right. But it's not. So it's a weird spot of, I'm frustrated. I want it to work out with Sharon. I want him to have a long and successful career at Michigan. I think everything that he's doing in terms of expanding and kind of modernizing the recruiting department, obviously the guys he's able to bring to Michigan, I want it to work. But there's a bit of look, uninspired, unimpressive. I think that's probably 2 words that I would use to describe this performance on Saturday. They never particularly looked excited to play. They didn't bring their own juice. Right? It's a coaching, coach speak stuff, but I think it's true. And real quick, to your point about Saturday being at noon being a disadvantage of Washington. I think it might be a wash because that is going to be a snoozy big house. You know how the big house gets, especially coming off a loss, a disappointing loss, a deflating loss. It's noon. Haven't been liquored up all day. A night game, you can drink through it. And you're like, I'm talking myself into it. I did that last year for the Oregon game, which I think was a 3:30 kick. I talked myself into we can win out. So you're not going to have those delusional fans like myself, liquored up at noon. Maybe most of them. So it's going to be they're going to have to bring their own energy.
The thing for me is, a lot of times we talk about PFF grades and different position groups, and we're not really doing that this week. But, just going back to feeling good about trying to see some of the good in Saturday's performance and where this team is at. PFF grades, I think people are, all of us that went to school and tend to think like anything less than a 90 is a bad grade. PFF, if you get anything over like 67, 68, you had a pretty darn good game, right? So the scale is much different because they just don't, in any given week, there's only one or two guys in any position that have over a 90 grade. So you got to move your scale. But when you look at the guys on our team that had the best grades, they're the young guys. Andrew Marsh, we talked about, true freshman, 79.8. Jake Garnera, true freshman, 70.9. Andrew Sprague, was he a redshirt freshman, sophomore, 70.7. Zeke Berry, second-year starter, will be back next year, 70.6. Cole Sullivan making his first time on the field, first time playing this year, sophomore, 73.8. Trey Pierce, I think he's got he's a sophomore, I think. Maybe he's a junior, maybe a redshirt sophomore, 70.1. So Jordan Marshall, sophomore, 72.7. And Bryce Underwood, you take away his pick, we've already talked about. He was almost a 70 at 68.8. So my point is, we already talked about, I don't want to belabor the point, but it's just trying to find some optimism, trying to find the positive outlook on the state of the program. Everyone I just mentioned are guys that should be in the program for a few years. We were recruited really good. There's a bunch of guys I didn't list: Babalola, Ty Haywood, young guys. Haven't seen the field yet that we know are going to be good. I was really surprised when Haynes got hurt that they brought up Bryson Kuzdal, a walk-on, instead of Jasper Parker. I was young. That was one of the for me, as a guy that knows the depth chart well, that was one of the things I was most frustrated with, which is silly, big picture. But it was like, why are we playing this guy? You're trying to minimize damage, and maybe whatever they were trying to do, they didn't feel like Jasper could handle. But give that guy some snaps. He's got some pop. Bryson Kuzdal's never going to do anything that's going to impress anyone other than, hey, a walk-on got some snaps and he hit that block really good. You know what I mean? Respect to Bryson. But this team is really young. And did I think we were winning the Big Ten title this year? No. Did I think we were going to the playoffs this year? I really didn't think so. I thought if we got lucky and some things fell our way, maybe. But I reserve judgment till next week, this time next week. You know what I mean? Like I say, when we're kids, same time next week, we'll be back talking about it. And if, Michigan goes and wins by 10, 12 points, the outlook's a lot different for the week. Now, now everything's in front of you. You know what I mean? They go out and play and look like they did and coach like they did. And, the juice factor that you talked about was very obvious. I think that's as much coach speak as that. It was obvious for anyone that's watched a lot of football that they just didn't seem to have that pop, out there. If they come out looking like that and play like that and coach like that, then, my tone's going to sound a lot different next week. But I reserve optimism because of everything I just laid out.
Yeah. You heard Sharon talk about it, as a playoff game. Sure. You may have said it, but that sure was not the tone or what I got from the team.
No, not at all.
And so that's why, going back to the press conference stuff, that's where I'm like, okay, they got to I don't know, they got to rein it in. So, again, I don't want to harp on that stuff, but that stuff I don't think you would have heard before, from, even 2020. I remember hearing some stuff from players like that. So, yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. I think this is a really good Washington team. I'm going to present another challenge, a really good offense. Defensively, I think Michigan can certainly, do some things. But, if they go 3-and-out and keep their defense on the field, it wasn't complimentary football too on Saturday. So that was a problem. Your defense just, they give up a long touchdown drive, but they need some time to breathe too. and you go 3 and out. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. To your point about Bryson Cusdall, I don't even – okay, here's another gripe that I have in that game that, again, reminded me of 08 to 2014 because – and this team's a lot more talented than any of those teams, right? But I think it was it 31-13? I can't remember what the score was, but I think Michigan was down 2 scores. I don't think it was 18 points yet. And there's maybe 10 minutes left in the game, and play clock's getting to 12, 10, 8 seconds. What are we doing? Are we trying to make it not look so bad? Because Rich Rodriguez did that. Remember when he punted?
Oh, yeah.
Against Michigan State in 2010?
He definitely did that, yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that worries me. It's small. It's nitpicky. But when you get beyond just, hey, you got your ass kicked, there's also some things that you're like, well, it's not a great sign, not a great symptom of maybe what might be a bigger issue. Again, I don't want to minority report this.
It's a great
as we talked about. I was thinking about it. I'm like, it's not exactly 1-to-1, but it's a little similar. And I think that's where fans are operating from, like, of their expectation now for the rest of the year. After, again, if this was 28-27, Michigan fought hard, lost, hey, man, it's football, right? But to get your ass kicked up and down the field to 490 yards, and they probably could have scored 45. That's what makes it difficult, I think, for people. So
100%. Well, I think I look at, a lot of people listen to this are Lions fans. If you're not a Lions fan and follow football, you know about Dan Campbell. He's built his reputation on being a risk taker and taking chances, and it's worked. And so people love him. But if early on, all those 4th down tries he went and didn't work, and we lost some of those games, he may not be around anymore. And that would have been a mistake. Mm-hmm. And I look at the going for 2. Like, I just felt like I didn't understand it. Like, I know analytics will tell you, and I was literally Googling, like, why go for it here? Like looking for some analytics to explain it to me, and analytics couldn't explain it. Google couldn't explain it to me, but it like killed momentum. Like you scored it's 21, was it 21-14 at the time?
No, it would have been 24-14.
24-14. Thank you. And, it's kind of kills momentum. You like have all this, excitement, and then it's like, you know what I mean? It's like a little bit of a letdown. And so, if you win that game, if they get the 2, then people are talking about, gutsy, big balls and all the things. If you're going to take the chances, you got to pull it off, like Dan Campbell does. And, it's just another thing. Like, it just piles on. And so they did a statement game. I'll be interested. You talked about Gio and TJ guys, some of these veteran guys that, that haven't been that great for us or haven't played a lot for us. But it's up to, we lean on them right now more than we have all season. Like, it's up to them. The best teams are player-led teams, right? We talk about the coaching staff, but the best teams in college sports, high school sports, pro sports are player-led teams. And this is where your leaders got to step up and hold people accountable. And so I think, for the, Rod Moore, Gio, Max Bredesen, it's their job this week to say what we did this week wasn't acceptable, but keep your eye on the prize. Washington's coming to town. We have another opportunity to show America, show our fans what Michigan football is, who we are as players, who we are as a program. And so, I look to them. Everyone's looking to point at the coaching staff, and that's valid. They're responsible, and they're part of this too. But I think, a component that I haven't heard people talk about is the senior leadership. We may be the youngest team in the conference, but we have veteran presence of guys that have been in this program for a long time and seen a lot of success. And it's up to them to kind of hold people accountable. And that's kind of where I'm at. You know what I mean? Like, let's see how good of leaders that I believe that they are. It's up to them. Like, the coach wearing the blue collar jacket's one thing. It's what's Max Bredesen and Gio El-Hadi and gang TJ Guy and those guys doing, Rod Moore doing in the locker room to hold guys accountable. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I'll make 2 points. I want to go back to what you said about going for 2. The one great thing about math is that it's an undeniable truth, which still sometimes you think about it too much. You're like, I don't know how we got to this. I don't know how we came up with this thing.
Math is undefeated.
Right. But you know what math doesn't account for? The morale of 18 to 22-year-olds on a road game.
Amen. Right losing, there. That's my point. That's 100% my point.
Yeah.
Articulated better.
I had that in my head. I was like, I got to say this now. Second thing, 100% with you. There needs to be difficult conversations from player to player, roommate to roommate, coach to coach, and all the above, all the way from Sharon down. There needs to be difficult conversations. There needs to be conversations in the mirror about from a program perspective, from a staff, from player personnel, all of it, individually, everything. There needs to be some heart to hearts, and I hope they stop having to do that. It seems like every other week, the last year and a half, it's like they got to have a coming to Jesus moment. If you win games, you don't really have to do that, right? Like, you're going to get coached in film, and you're going to be taught different techniques, like, hey, you messed this up on this play or whatever. But you're not going to have these deep, what do you want your season to look like moments? Because you know what your season is going to look like. Because you're 5-1 instead of 4-2, or you're 6-0, right? Because you come ready to play, and you put guys in position to have success. So, yeah, I hope that they've had some difficult conversations so far this week. It's Tuesday evening. So we've got, 4 or 5 days till kickoff here. That's a big game.
Huge.
That might be that to this point, other than the Ohio State game, which is always the biggest game on the schedule. I don't care what the records are. This is the biggest game in Sharon's tenure.
And who would have thought that when you looked at all the games on the schedule this year that you'd be looking at this game? Like, I feel like we kind of said that last week at USC, and we laid an egg. And because if we win Saturday night, then this game isn't that big of a game. I mean, it's still an important game, but because they lost to USC, it becomes the biggest game, right?
I don't even mean from like this season perspective.
Yeah.
Just from the feeling inside Schembechler Hall, right? Because then you're starting to skid a little bit, and it's like, well, what are we? And then you go to MSU the following week, and they're not very good. But you know what gets a bad team ready to play is a rivalry game.
Oh yeah. So
you're gonna have to come if you can get through to the bye week with 2 losses, regroup, then you're sitting in a pretty good position. But I said last week before the game, if you win this game and you can get through to the bye weeks with 1 loss, you're in the playoff conversation.
Right.
You still are if you do that with 2 losses. You just have to win every single game. So it's going to be interesting. It was a fun show.
No doubt.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm excited for Saturday. Nervous because I do think I'm putting a lot on this game. You know what I mean? Because I'm holding, like my crew at bay, like the folks that I, mixed up with football, all losing their minds. And I feel like I'm the one kind of saying, hey guys, it's all good. And so I've, put a lot of stock in it being good. And so, I need them to show up. We all do. But I mean, it's like, I want them to show up, and, I reserve the right to be a complete belligerent fool on next Tuesday.
I'm with you. And I want to see Michigan win.
That's no doubt.
Yep. That's as simple as it gets. I just want to watch Michigan win. I don't care what it looks like for the most part, depending on who they're playing. I just want to see Michigan win. That's why I watch. Man. And when they don't win, it stings. But to your point about as I get older too, I don't know if there's anybody that remembers. I used to do like Maize and Brew podcast. I was like 21. I was probably the biggest shithead, just super doom and gloom. Well, maybe not in that time because I was like 2016, but maybe 2017. Super doom and gloom. And then you get older and you have kids, and you're like, doesn't matter that much. Just football, right? But for those 3 hours on Saturday, that is the most important thing in the world. You get that tunnel vision on it, so it's going to be good. I hope. It's going to be a good game. We're going to be 1006 South Main Street, just northwest of the Big House. If you know the Maize and Blue House, the Blue House with maize trim, that open lot right next to it off of Main is where we tailgate.
Great spot.
We're going to have Feldman Chevrolet of Highland there. They're going to bring, I don't know, they came with a Suburban last time, Brian, and I'm like, Claudia wanted that one. And I wanted the truck the couple weeks before. So they're going to be there with some goodies, with the vehicle you can check out. I know they've got some great deals on their pre-owned vehicles right now in their lot. Also, big shout out to Woodson Whiskey, of course. I've got my signed bottles and my helmet from Charles Woodson. I also got a couple Riddell Speedflex mid-size helmets, Brian. They're pretty sweet. They're a little bit bigger than mini helmets, so they're pretty awesome. I wish I could have got Charles to sign one of those, but Woodson Whiskey, they always hook it up, so they'll be there. We'll have some of their product at the tailgate So come on by on Saturday, 8 to 12. Going to be a great time. So thank you all so much for listening. Brian, thank you for joining me as always.
Thanks, buddy.
For us, you can follow us on Twitter at Blue by 90, Instagram, Facebook, all social medias, as well as you can check out our podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.